I can see it when you do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, how about our big round of applause for this incredible...
Where are you going?
I'll be outside.
Okay.
A single empty seat in this house tonight, and I just want to thank every single one of you for being here. Right now, I want to introduce the four of the people that made this film possible. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Brian Hooker. Everybody. We're going to open up this Q&A with some questions to our panel first, and then afterwards we're going to open up to all of you questions. So we'll have someone with a microphone out in the audience. If you'll just raise your hand at that point, they'll bring the mic to you and you can ask the question. But let's open this up by first, Andy, let's talk about your story. You have been on this trek for almost 20 years now. Most of the people in this audience probably have followed much of that story, but what is it that compelled you to finally decide to make a movie about this issue and bring it to audiences in this way?
Thank you, Rich. As you say, for the last 20 years I've been working with families with autism and watching their suffering and watching with some dismay the behavior of my colleagues in the medical profession. Ultimately, my career took a dramatic change, and I joined up with Polly Tommy, who founded the Autism Media Channel, and our aim was to make powerful documentaries that told the stories of what families had been through. And then it was in May 2014 that Brian contacted me and told me about William Thompson. First brought my attention to the fact that there was a senior scientist from within the CDC who was confessing to the fact that they had known that MMR was causally associated with autism and had concealed that fact for 14 years, putting millions of children in harm's way. And so at that point we decided that this had to be told in a documentary. It was sometime after that in a fundraiser in California, in Los Angeles, that I met Del Victory. Del had a very successful career as a producer of the Doctor's daytime talk show. And Del said, I want to come down to Austin, Texas and see what you've got. He did. He flew himself down to Texas. We showed him what we produced so far to that point, and he gave up his career at the Doctor's. He gave up a very good career, took a risk on the promise of nothing at all, because, as he will tell you, this was such a compelling and such an important story.
Thank you. You did have a successful career on this show. You heard about this issue. It must have been a concern for you at some point to realize that if you did leave the show and pursue this issue, that you were going to get some of the same backlash that Dr. Wakefield got. He has certainly been courageous in pursuing this truth for a long time, but what is it that really compelled you to do the same?
Well, I mean, you just saw it in this movie. When I flew down and saw what Andy Wakefield had put together, I heard the words of William Thompson. I saw the data. This isn't just some guy making a confession that he's making up his mind. He provided data to back it up. Brian Hooker's done a really good job of sort of going through that and working through it. But as a journalist, as a filmmaker, our job is to ask appropriate questions. And the entire, not the entire, but most of the media that we've all seen over the last week has just denied journalism altogether. It's been made statements about a film we never saw, saying that we're being irresponsible for asking these questions, when you have a very real CDC scientist that's come forward with really disturbing facts, proof, of fraud. And, I had to look at it, obviously, it's, a lot of friends are saying it's career suicide. What are you doing near Andy Wakefield? And I looked into this really thin, fraudulent story lying Wakefield. There's a lot of concern about it. I'm not going to get into all the details that you discover when you actually do your job and look at what that case involved. But I'll say this, that it has been my greatest honor and pleasure. Every minute I've sat with this really great man, this fantastic scientist, that the pharmaceutical industry and the powers that be decided to take from us. And one of the things that's concerning is people say, well, why does this vaccine cause autism? And the truth is we would have known that had he been allowed to continue all the studies he was working on. There was 13 co-authors on this paper. So the one statement I want to make, they keep calling it the Andy Wakefield fraud. There are 12 co-authors on this paper, many of them the top scientists in the field that have sifted through every inch of that study. They had to sign off on every word because they were involved in all the practices that put that paper together. And we never hear about that. And we never hear about why would it be that only one of these scientists had his career taken away. You know why? Because he didn't back down. He stood up for our children and the future of our children in this world. Where those studies were leading. And the pharmaceutical industry and the powers that were controlling the governments all over this world refused to let us have these answers. Well, it's time now. Enough is enough. We have got to stand up as citizens in this country and citizens of this world and say, we want answers. We want William Thompson called before the Congress immediately. For a year and a half, this is a free country. And our government is supposed to be looking out for us. And that's what this is about. And I had no choice. It's the best choice I'd ever made. And I'd make it over and over again.
We're glad that both of you made that choice. And talking about making the choice is courageous too, Polly. You have been kind enough to show your story in this film and open up your family, your home, so that we could see what it was like. And I want to know, and I think everybody here does, what is it that you want people to know from the autistic family community?
Well, one of the first things I want you to know is that, you've just seen a little clip of Bill, but I'm a very, very lucky mother because Billy is really, really good compared to most cases of autism. I speak to families the whole time. For 18 years, I've been talking to families. One of my greatest friends stands over her son, her beautiful late teen son, and he is having serious seizures every day. She has no idea if he's going to make it through that. She just has to watch him as he goes through it. And then I have another mother whose son has bashed his head, smashed his head so badly it's distorted. Doesn't even look like that boy that he used to be. And she doesn't know how long he's going to be able to last through life smashing his head like that. Another mother who's kept her son so safe for 20 years, so safe because this non-verbal big man with diapers, she doesn't want him to get out because if he gets out, then he may be arrested or something may happen. And one day he did get out because he has a fascination with shopping catalogues. He got out and he took a catalogue from someone, he's now in prison, and she probably won't get him back out again because once they do go to prison, autism is the least of their problems. And I could talk all night about this serious, serious situation that comes from one needle, one moment in time where we trusted our doctors with our most precious beings in the whole world. And the situation, I cannot tell you, is so much more serious than the children that you see up there. And Brian's child, my child, Eric Nansel's child, they could have had a chance in life. They could have been whatever they wanted to be. They should be in high school or going to college or not, but that would have been their choice. They have no choice now. And it doesn't just affect them, it affects the parents. The parent has to give their life, and gladly we will do it. We love our children, but it affects the whole family, and it's going to be forever in their life. And then when we're not around, the siblings, and that's another story, siblings, we're not there for them because we have to run around after our child who has diarrhea and is a danger because he may run out on the road. I could talk all night about the situation. Vaccine damage is serious. It is a serious problem, and it's not just Brian and my problem anymore. Everybody in this room, it's your problem. Because Stephanie Senna is right. In 2032, you will either have autism or you will be a carer. And this has to stop, and it has to stop right now.
You were the person that talked with Dr. William Thompson originally, and that led to this film, I would say. But I think it's important that you tell also how it is as a parent of an autistic child, what you want people to know. What's your experience?
Well, as a parent of an autistic child, I can affirm, everything that Polly has just shared. And as a scientist, one of the things that I realize as a scientist and a parent is that when you look at vaccine injury, these aren't just numbers on a page. These are lives that are destroyed. And as we watch the autism epidemic grow and grow and grow, these are just, they're not, something that the CDC can pass off and do what we call statistical Olympics in order to make effects go away. These are lives that have been destroyed, and we're over 1 million persons in the United States that have been diagnosed with autism, and millions around the world. I was given a gift to be able to display that to Dr. Thompson, and one of the things that he mentioned to me as he knew that this story was going to break, he knew that he had given me enough information, I could no longer keep it secret anymore. I had to make this public in order to protect the public, in order to protect families from having to go what my family has gone through. And one of the things that he said to me is, when this story breaks, I'm going to suffer for a few months. But autism is for a lifetime. And vaccine injury, the way that these children are being maimed, the way that their futures are being forever altered is something that, and I am encouraged to see this full auditorium because I know so many of you are getting the word out, and these scientists that are sitting in their ivy towers basically making up numbers, they need to know. They need to know, and there needs to be consequences for their actions as well.
I just want to say personally, I have known these people, most of them now, for almost a year. I've listened to their stories, I've listened to the struggles they've gone through, and I truly think that they should all be commended for the courage they've had and for the wherewithal they've had to stick with this and to bring the truth to you.
We haven't done this yet, but there's something I'd like to do for, all the press out there that, says, this is all a joke or somehow they shouldn't be paying attention to it. Can every parent or someone, if you have a family member with autism, would you please stand up right now? I'd like to see. Can we turn the cameras? Everybody's got a camera in the room. I want to show you how many people have got this story. You are why we are here. Thank you for being courageous. Thank you for getting up every day to take care of your children. And thank you for sharing this story. The world needs to know this is taking place.
Thank you, Bill. All right, let's open this up so that you guys can ask questions. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and we'll bring the mic over to you. Here, we can start right here.
Hi, thank you. My name is Davis. I just have a two-part question. Number one, if you guys had a chance to meet with state legislators, what would you tell them to give them not towards the issue? And number two, after recouping the cost of making the movie, would you consider putting it out for free or for 99 cents on YouTube or Vimeo, just so it goes viral? Because there's no way that it will go through the burning wall of mainstream media at all, because they get the money from the people that cause the problem.
Thank you for your question.
What would you say to the other
Right.
legislators?
What the question was, what would we say to legislators? And as the whistleblower story broke, I met with many legislators, especially at the federal level, and what I told them is this is the biggest public health catastrophe, if not the biggest health catastrophe that's ever happened in the history of mankind. And, you know, the pharmaceutical lobby is extremely powerful. The pharmaceutical lobby that is lobbying against families of vaccine-injured children spends 3 times as much as the next greatest lobbying effort. The next greatest lobbying effort is oil and gas. The pharmaceutical industry spends 3 times as much as oil and gas in millions and millions, eclipsing $100 million just for Congress alone in lobbyists. There are 3 lobbyists for every legislator on Capitol Hill. And we know that they're taking pharmaceutical money, and it's time that they, instead of listening to special interests and listening to pharmaceutical interests, it's time for them to listen to the people that this is actually happening to.
They got to De Niro.
In a broader context, I believe that historians will look back at this time and it will be documented as the end of the First Republic of the United States of America. We have defied the Constitution when politicians put the interests of corporations before those of the people they are sworn to serve. Then we are in a very, very sorry state. The French understand revolutions. The Americans should understand revolutions, and I believe they will if things don't change dramatically for the better. We have warned the politicians about this. We've told them of the problem. What astonishes me is that within a month of the expose on Flint and lead contamination of water and the cover-up, there was a hearing of the Oversight Committee on Government Reform. We have been prevailing upon that committee for over 1.5 years to hold a hearing which subpoenas William Thompson, and they have run so far from their duty. It is now up to you, the public, to hold the feet of the politicians to the fire in this election year to make sure that that happens and that they recognize who they truly represent.
I'll just speak to the distribution side of your question. We set out with this film. There's been several great films on this topic that have used grassroots efforts to sort of share the information. And when I got involved, one of the things I said to Andy is we're not penetrating, the ceiling. We're not getting through to the mainstream. We're not getting through to 90% of America. They're just walking blindly into this vaccine choice and not questioning and asking the appropriate questions, especially given the light of what Dr. William Thompson shared here. So this theater and what this represents going to theaters is getting it into the public eye, getting it into the mainstream of society. So right now we are very focused on being in theaters. Most people don't realize in film it's a loss of money to be in a theater. It'll take a while to recoup that, but it's all about being visible. What we're asking for you, what we really need from you tonight is to tweet and hit your Facebooks. We need to fill this theater like this all day tomorrow. We need to send a signal to all of the theaters in this country that says this is a viable story. Americans care about this story. It's important to them because that's what this is about. Everything revolves around success, and we need to show theaters that this is a successful movie and that people want to hear this story. After that, of course, the film will be made available. We will make sure that everybody in the world sees this film. It's extremely important. But right now, I want billboards all over every city in this country advertising this movie. And I want all of you organizations to have the best of this movie.
Do you have maybe some people in the back have a question?
The research data that you guys speak about in the movie, the actual physical documents, are they available?
Yes, those documents are available. They're directly available to the public right now. The transcripts of the phone calls have been made into a book called Vaccine Whistleblower. It's authored and edited by Kevin Barry, who has an affected child himself. And also the documents have been made available directly by Representative Bill Posey, and anybody that contacts Bill Posey's office can get access to those documents.
I also want to say that we're...
Be sent to every doctor that's thinking of a child today, and if I was a doctor, which I am not, and I had to make a choice, a medical choice for a child, whether that be mine or someone else's, I would want to know that this information was available. And if it is what you say it is, I haven't seen it, and I probably wouldn't know what it was if I did. But I'm sure a physician that had that type of training would. If the document is what you guys say it is, wouldn't that at least make them question? And how come you guys haven't thought about doing that, just getting it out there to the physicians? Thank you.
It is, it's a very good point. It is out there. It's in fact gone beyond that. And what I would recommend is there is a distillation of the fraud into 37 pages, which was sent to the Office of Research Misconduct, which has oversight over the CDC. That is available as a downloadable PDF on autismmediachannel.com. That is the document to get to your politicians, your representatives. The documents that were handed over by Thompson amount to some 10,000 pages, which no one's going to wade through unless they're particularly interested in this story. But those 37 pages put the charges that are leveled by Dr. Thompson and the people who've reviewed those documents. So please go to that, access that, and send that to your representatives.
I also want to say that the entire, we had a lot of goals with this film, one of which was to be a Tribeca in about 3 or 4 weeks. After that, the plan was to spend about a month advertising the film and releasing it in June. At that point, we had a website we've been working on. We've been giving all these materials to everybody that wants to see it. But circumstances have changed, as most of you have seen. And a lot of things happened very quickly this week, and we took the opportunity to bring this movie to you because it was made available. And we're behind schedule. I mean, we had 3 days. In 3 days, we find ourselves here. We were working on the website and all of these things to get, all the truth out to everybody, and every doctor, and everyone that wants to challenge it, and every journalist that wants to look at it, of course, please look at it. We really request that everybody start doing their job, especially journalists. Come on, join us here. It's a really important story.
Yeah. And on that note, even though this is probably one of the quickest turnarounds in distribution history, you guys have validated that it was worth it, so thank you. We're in the middle there?
We set up a 401c3, a fund, a VAXXED fund, where the parents who want to contribute to alternate, real scientific data are able to come together and finance and fund. This is New York. There are people in here who have the means to do it. If we don't do it, it will not get done. We have to come together and pool our money and do the research, the sources. Is there anything you're thinking about setting up where we can donate strategically for real scientific research to be done, vaxxed versus unvaxxed?
You hit the nail on the head. The most important study that needs to be done is a comparison of fully vaccinated children against children who are completely unvaccinated. That the CDC have refused to do. That is a study that could be done. And it could be done by a group of researchers who are actually into that study at the moment. It will need funding, but it is absolutely crucial. It is telling, very telling, that the CDC absolutely refused to do that study, as you see. Have you seen when Congressman Bill Posey challenged the CDC representative in this movie?
They try to say it's
the
unethical.
vax study, in order to get a baseline comparison of the long-term health outcomes of children who are completely vaccinated versus unvaccinated, has not been done, must be done, in line with congressional mandates And without that, then we are all living in a state of ignorance, and it is totally inappropriate for the authorities to claim that they know that vaccines are safe and that they don't cause autism.
But ladies and gentlemen, we have time for about one more question. We have about 3 minutes left, and we have to clear the auditorium for the next crowd that comes in so they can see this. I do want to tell you that after we clear out, if you go up the stairs to the right, and up to the section towards the exit, the panel here can talk with you and answer more questions. So let's go one more question, and remember we have about 3 minutes left.
Are you aware of the CDC Rally for Truth and Transparency and Freedom that's going to be occurring in Atlanta on April 22nd and 23rd? And if so, do you expect to have a presence there?
Absolutely, we're aware of it. I'm at this point, I'm in talks with and good friends with with Michelle Ford, who is sponsoring this through the Vaccine Injury Awareness League. And I'm actually in the middle of final exams then as a professor, and so I'm going to be Skyping in. But yes, there is a rally in Atlanta. There's a demonstration in front of the CDC on April 22nd demanding truth and transparency, and then there's an information session that's going to follow on April 23rd. Thank you for pointing that out.
All right. Well, Andy, Dell, Polly, Brian, thank you very much.